everyone. So I am Sarita Khadka and I am from Kathmandu University School of Education. I'm a teacher educator in Center CPEC, that stands for Continuing Professional Education Center, and it's a teachers professional development center of Kathmandu University School of Education. And I would like to welcome all of you to this our 10th webinar series. And yes, Milan sir, do you want to say something? Or is it just because you just pressed it by mistakenly? All right. So I would like to welcome all of you, and this is our 10th webinar series. And the theme for today's webinar series is to understand, like what STEAM-based school looks like. And we have so for this session, we have speakers from Nepal and from Greece. I would like to introduce our speaker. We have Professor Dr. Balchandra Rital. He's also a Dean of Kathmandu University School of Education. I might not need to introduce him in a detail. He's an educationist, he's a practitioner, researcher, so I would like to welcome him in this webinar series. And we have another speaker, Vinod Prasad Panta. He is also a practitioner, researcher, educator, as well as head of department in STEAM education. And another speaker, Koni Karma, is here with us. Hello, Koni. Welcome. And she is like she's an author, and Koni, she is basically she hold language background, and she's currently an educator, and she's also a director of STEAM-based school in Greece, and she's also author and a research material resources developer of STEAM, like what the STEAM materials looks like for which age grade level. So she is a developer and as well as a writer of a STEAM material, and at the same time she is like founder of STEAM network of Greece. So lots of schools based in Greece. She is the focal person. She is the, like the she is the one who is looking into what schools is doing, what activities. So she is the focal person in Greece, and she has been working with more than 40 schools in her country. And she is also advocate of a STEAM education, why it is necessary for like today's generation. So I would like to welcome all of three key speakers for today's webinar. And at the same time, I could see friends from Kathmandu Valley, out of Valley, and out of Nepal. I would like to welcome all of you and thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. So without wasting our time, I would like to start our webinar from our one of the speaker, Vinod Prasad Panta sir. I request you to present in the beginning, like what is the context of STEAM education, and just share your insights on it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarita ma'am. Thank you for this opportunity. So, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Uh, yes. Okay. So, I have around 30 minutes time. Now, let me share my screen. Okay, as you can see, the title of my presentation is this: How does STEAM-based school look like? I'm Vinod Panta. Currently, I'm working at the Department of STEAM Education at Kathmandu University School of Education. So this presentation is based my own experiences, research, and study of different books and then papers, and also working in several schools as a researcher. So I'll be sharing a few theoretical ideas of STEAM educations and also some of the practical activity that we have been conducted in different schools. My presentation's outline is basically I'll focus on three different things. The first one is a few ideas on STEAM educations, and the second part, so it is the majority part of this my presentation. So STEAM based school. So I'll discuss from school culture, then I go for broader purpose of educations in terms of STEAM educations, and then the curriculum, pedagogical practices, and the assessment. So I just try to cover these all aspects in my short presentations. Although the ideas are very vague and very complex and multifaceted, but I try to bring some of the major concepts that we should envision curriculum, pedagogical practices, and assessment from the broader frame of STEAM-based schools. And finally, based on my studies and then experiences, I'll also suggest some of the milestones or some of the activities for school teachers and educators, or let's say the school leaders, if we want to make our institutions a STEAM-based schools. How can we begin, or what kind of activities that we conduct? So basically, so I'll be speaking from these three corners. So I'm going to the ideas of STEAM educations, as this ideas has not been now new for us for many years, because we have been discussing even the government organizations and other several other local level government and other organizations, schools and community peoples and researchers. They have been focusing on different aspects of STEAM educations. But just to get a short glimpse of this STEAM educations, we have to go back to the ideas of this disciplinary subject-centric teachings. So normally all of us, we were grown up from the perspective of this disciplinary ways of knowing, because we were taught in schools, so mathematics, science, language, there are different disciplines and there are different teachers, there are different ways of teaching. And then so one teacher does not know that what the other teachers have been teaching. So this was in the past, we used to practice these disciplinary ways of knowing. And then so just coming from this disciplinary or subject-centric ways of knowing, at one point in time, the researchers and educators, they have acknowledged that there is a strong connections among different subjects, and they also have acknowledged that if we just focus on separate disciplinary ways of knowing, so we cannot make a kind of holistic human being. So for that, so the subjects are themselves connected to each other. Now we have to explore the connections of that, and then teaching and learning also should go so side by side. So and then once they started to acknowledge this, the connections of different subjects matter in schools, and then people have started to argue on integrated curriculum and argue on integrated kind of learning and argued on integrated kind of project-based learning. And then at the same time, so there were two school of thought. One is that people used to take this science and arts as opposite part of a coin, because normally people used to take this art as just a passion, such as drawing or stories or other different forms of arts, and people used to take this science as a very objective kind of things, universal ways of dealing, and the importance of formal education. The science was given very much important in the formal education system in a modern period of time. But over the period of time, people started to see the connections between those arts and science, and then one discipline has contributed to the other discipline. Now there is no separations of arts and science, so that the one group of peoples are researchers or educators, so they have argued from the perspective of integrations of arts in schools educations, not as a subject but as a pedagogical practices. So as a means for imagination, as a means for creative thinking, as a means for exploring these solutions for different types of complex social issues. So that is what people call this arts-based pedagogy and STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics plus A. And then finally, if you see the history of this educational landscape, from 1980s or even in 90s, so transformative educations has gained popularities in school educations, because previously we used to focus more on cognitive science, just logic and reasoning. And then whenever there are several ethical issues came into the world, and people started to question, so what happens if one person becomes highly intellectual or highly logical or highly, let's say, the knowledgeable persons? So if he or she is not able to contribute in the society, if he or she does not have any ethics, values, and cultivate the agency, so the education is useless. And then people started to argue from the perspective of this transformative education. So at Kathmandu universities, at our department, and then the entire School of Education, so one of our motives is this transformative education, and one of the important dimensions of focus of this STEAM approach, that is integrated approach, is foster transformations is individuals and society. So if we see from this perspective, from this landscape, beginning from disciplinary knowledge, and then acknowledgement of these connections of subjects, so going through integrated learning, arts-based pedagogy, and for the purpose of transformations, it will give us a kind of map of these STEAM educations. Now, based on these theoretical ideas of STEAM educations, now I'll be sharing some of the aspects for STEAM-based educational institutions. So it can be school or it can be any other educational institutions. So the first one is I have come up with few questions that helps us to reflect our own organizations, our own practices, and because these all are very important to move ahead towards this STEAM educational practices. Because first of all, the most important aspect is our school culture, our organizational culture, and that is also reflected in our classroom cultures. So the one is, do all teachers and students feel valued and included in the school community? Because we prefer schools as a community, and then the teachers, students have different ideas, they are from different backgrounds. So whether they are valued or not, whether their ideas are included or not, whether they can speak freely or not. And then the next one is there opportunity to discuss their ideas, thoughts, and opinions with each other? And the third is, do the teachers or students feel responsible for their own actions, learning, and behavior? Because I have used the word here, responsible, and sometimes what happens, some educational institutions, they try to make people do the work in a very forceful environment, just keeping that very administrative channel. And what we have experiences, so that is not good for an educational institutions. So if we create a kind of environment there everybody feels responsible, and then that will be the good culture to establish this STEAM based approach. And the next one is, do they feel welcoming, joyful, and safe to be in the schools? Because here the safe, it is not only the safe from this building or other perspective psychologically, and then similarly whether we discuss about their own ideas, their own cultures. So there are different aspects of selves. I don't want to go there. So that, and then there are some of the specific activities that can cultivate a very good school cultures, and ultimately it helps us to build the STEAM to make STEAM based schools. So one is that one of the major approach in educational institutions is to follow asset based approach. Because there are a lot of assets in individual, there are a lot of assets in institutions, and then we as educator or educational leader should try to recognize and celebrate that assets, and that has to be maximized. And then the next one is, normally there are two perspectives. One is the making rules, and then making people to follow the rules, and if you do not follow the rules you will be penalized. So that may work at one level, but if we are using very progressive ideas in school education, and if we are making these individuals responsible, so we have to share the responsibility, we have to discuss each other rather than going from the framework of rules and then the punishment. Because we have seen the several organizations very closely, and those organizations who make people responsible, they are very good in terms of providing a very let's say the rich educational culture. And the third very important part is that sometimes what happens, people use their administrative power. Of course we need to use, there are structures, So there are principals, there may be other persons, but in an educational institutions, because we are dealing with educations, we are dealing with a kind of educational culture. So if you are leading the institutions, the leader should be one example. For example, the principal should be more highly instructional types of principles, so that he or she can provide feedback to the teachers, feedback to the students, feedback to the parents. It's not only the role of administrations, it's the roles of educator also. So similarly, the next things, because I'm speaking this from the perspective of different literatures and then experiences, although I have not brought here the references that is at the end. So the fourth very important aspect is that we have to go for establishing our school values and in collaborations with other stakeholders. So what are our school's values? Respect? Is it trust? Is it support? Is it cultivating a holistic kind of human resources? Is it fostering more on creativity? Or it is giving emphasis on grades? Or it is giving emphasis on other several kind of activities that ultimately makes a students with a very, very good grade, and so that you can show in the public. So what are our values? So this is very, very important. And there are certain values in STEM-based curriculum. For example, now in the next slide, I'll be sharing, this is very important, because although I talked these things in the previous slides, these two ideas are discussed in several books and papers. So one is in one kind of organizations, such as maybe force related organizations or other kind of bureaucracy, maybe the chain of commands might work there, and then there will be hierarchy, and then the one people gives command to the other people, and they have to follow the commands. So but in an education institutions, or more than that, in STEM-based education institutions, so there are chain of responsibility, and then those chain of responsibility are connected with our school values, are connected with our institutional values, are connected with our values in assessment, values in pedagogical practices. So the clarifying the values and then establishing the chain of responsibility is very much important. But it depends on the nature of values. It does not mean that we should have the same kind of value in across the all kind of institutions. So the next important aspects of STEAM education is this is a broader purpose of education. And then sometimes what happens, because we have been delivering several workshops in different parts of Nepal, and then what we have seen that so the majority of school teachers and then few school leaders, it seems that they are not very much clear on the purpose of education. So what is the purpose of today's education? There are some things are very essential. For example, obviously we need knowledge, obviously we need subject specific skills, obviously we need one kind of grade as well. Obviously there are we need to cultivate soft skills, maybe exposure, and many more things. So we can have a very long list. But why are there essentials? So is this the end of this purpose of educations? So I think these all are needed for fostering critical understanding of the context, because we need knowledge, we need subject specific skill, we need soft skills, we need other different things for critical understanding of the context, for solving real or complex social issues, and then at the end, for for the journey of transformations of individual self and then others, community or other people. So what I'm focusing here, these two parts, but it seems that the majority of peoples that we have made, they have focused on only the first part, knowledge, some skills, soft skills, and then grades. But these are necessary, but these are insufficient. So we need to go to the second. So one of the major purpose of this integrated STEAM educations is to foster critical understanding of the context. So I'll be giving some of the examples in the later part of my presentations. So now, if so, then how do you see this curriculum, which is the main aspect of academic institutions? So one is that we can see that several academic institutions in Nepal, They have also followed international curriculum. So I have used this terminology inter/national, national and international curriculum. So now the first stage is, are you aware of the major intent or purpose or the procedure while following that curriculum? So that is the most important aspect. So what is the main purpose of the, suppose the national curriculum in Nepali context developed by STDC, or there are other curriculum as well that has been used by some of the other education institutions. So for example, what I saw in the last few weeks, I interacted with some of the school teachers, and one school teacher said that our education system is not good. You have seen the content in science and content in mathematics. That content is not well designed, well developed. The way of writing the textbook is not appropriate. And so he's making a conclusion that the curriculum is not good and the entire education system is not good because they have not used appropriate questions at the text. So that why I'm focusing on this perspective, is that the major intent of the curriculum? Or are we simply evaluating the entire curriculum just by looking so few textbook written by a few people? And then so the starting point should be, we have to become aware with the major intent of the curriculum. And the second is that I have used the terminology here, school based curriculum. We can see that several schools have adopted the national and international curriculum, and then they have prepared their own, let's say, let me not use that school have prepared their own curriculum, but they have prepared some of the contents or some of the aspects, just adding some of the values to make the content specific. I'll give one example in the next presentations. And more than that, because we are talking about STEAM-based curriculum, incorporating values, ethics, and agency and different forms of transformative learning. So for that, hidden curriculum is very much important, because we can see that maybe there may be 5 schools who are using the same curriculum, but the graduates who come from 5 different schools, we can find different types of graduates, and only one this reason for that is hidden curriculum of that institutions. How that institutions have okay, how that particular institutions have performed their day-to-day activities, how they have executed their activities, what values and perspective do students develop due to their own ongoing actions. So this is the very important aspect, so that as an educational institutions, so how do you perform our daily activities? Let me give you one small example here. When I visited one of the schools in Kathmandu Valley, so-called very big schools, and then I went to the principal's room, and principal just offered me a coffee, a cup of coffee, and then he said that what type of coffee do you take? And then I take a milk coffee without sugar. And he just made a call to the canteen persons. And at that time, what I said, in your schools, do teachers also get opportunities to make a call to canteen people and then order coffee in their staff room? And he said, no. So only I can do that, and others people they don't do. And in that particular schools, there are about 1,000 let's say the students, and the persons who carries coffee from the canteen and goes to the principal office, almost all the students, they can see that canteen persons just carrying coffee, and then they develop a kind of mindset that because the principal is in the authority, and then so he or she can just order coffee from the canteen, but we are not in the authority, we are not in the power, so we cannot do that. So at the same time, what I said, so this is one of the example of hidden curriculum. The principal might go to the canteen and then enjoy the coffee with the school teachers. So that has created a kind of let's say the hierarchy, and all other teachers and students develop that kind of mindset due to our regular activities that we have been performing in our institution. So that is what one of the examples of hidden curriculum that I want to share. So the now STEAM curriculum, now what happens, the one is, if we follow this interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary ways of curriculum, so this is the first step of applying the STEAM curriculum. For example, although you follow the national curriculum, that's fine, but if you try to see the connections of at least two or more than two curriculum, and if those two are more than two teachers, they sit together and they make a plan that perhaps we can connect this one subjects with other subjects, and we can prepare one integrated kind of project. So that is the beginning of this STEAM based curriculum. So my focus is here that we are not talking about other different types of curriculums. We can also include this STEAM perspective within our existing curriculum. But the final destinations, as per our understanding, the STEAM-based curriculum is transdisciplinary curriculum. So there will be no these clear demarcations of different subjects. So there will be issues, there will be different the social issues, and then you might discuss one social issues in 1 week and or in a month, so based on the intent or the gravity of that social issues. And within that month, you may learn different concept of mathematics, you may learn different concept of science, different concept of environment. But the students, they don't develop a kind of feeling that, oh, today I learned science in this science period, I learned math in that math period, so I have to learn environment in the next period. And but what you learn, you just learn maybe maybe let's say about market. That is one of the ways is theme-based curriculum that Nepal government also has used in integrated curriculum in 1, 2, 3, and there are other ways as well. And the second interesting thing is that we need to see the connections between those science and arts. I also said a few things in my second slide. So there we have made one presentations together with myself and other Professor Luitel and other two professors from Norway. And here we have our inclusive learning environment. We have to include those both perspective, science and arts as ways of knowing, because we have been largely focusing on scientific ways of knowing. So we see we make a kind of hypothesis, and then we go into the lab and we try to prove something or disprove something. So that is needed, that is scientific ways of knowing. But at the same time, there are artistic ways of knowing also. So if we can include these two perspectives, then it makes for inclusive learning environment. So that is the fundamental premises for STEAM education. And then one example, because we conducted research in few schools of Kabri, and then so a group of teachers from that particular schools, it is in Nepali. I just took the screenshot here. So this is called school-based curriculum, and they come up with the ideas that our hamro janahit karesha bari, and then this is the list of content. And we did not support at this point in time, because we invested several years with the school teachers, and then in the last year what they realized that now we have to document something, whatever we learned in this long journey, and they prepare a kind of school-based curriculum, and then so they are applying that this curriculum. So these are some of the glimpses. For example, in this fish farming, and they wrote about these ideas, and they also prepared some of the activities, and there are some of the exercises, and students they go through this reading, and then they discuss in a group, and here you can see the different concepts. And there are some concept of mathematics, and then some concept of science, and some concept of ethics, entrepreneurship, and you can see the last one is the STEAM approach. They also have kept this STEAM approach as a pedagogical approach. So this is one of the example that on public schools teachers, they prepare by themselves. So that is what one example of this STEAM-based curriculum. So the next one is now going through this STEAM-based pedagogical practices. Whenever we go on pedagogical practices, even in conventional type of workshop, so-called teacher training, so we can see that people share some of the ideas in the workshops, and the majority of teachers, they say that those strategy cannot be used exactly in our school setting. because sometimes what happens, the environment of teacher training, because that is more resourceful, there are a lot of resources are available in training sessions, there we have a lot of time, but that cannot be directly copied in the school setting. So there is one ideas of everyday pedagogy. This is very, very important. So I have read a book, this published 100 years before. I just read few months back, and the title is Everyday Pedagogy. And then this is very much interesting, although it was published 100 years back, and then people have other people have also used these ideas in STEAM approach. So how do you present ourselves in our classroom with the teachers? So do we focus on inquiry based activities? Do we give enough opportunities for our students for investigations? Is that participatory? So there may be lectures, but is it interactive lectures? Do you invite students to think or to write or to speak even at the time of your lectures? So this is what the some of the ideas
पानी
in
पिया
everyday pedagogy. So in everyday pedagogy, okay, I think okay. So in everyday pedagogy, at least if we use the ideas of I think okay, if we use this inquiry based and investigatory approach, so that will be the initial point for STEAM based pedagogical approach. And the next one is one of the major ideas of STEAM based pedagogical approach, because it is based on the principle of integrated learning. So we have to focus on project based learning. So there are different kind of projects, there are different principle of projects. I don't want to go behind that, but we have to go this project-based learning not only for the purpose of assessment. This is for the purpose of learning. So the schools or teachers might decide that maybe at the end of each unit or maybe at the end of the month, so you can begin from disciplinary kind of project, and then gradually you can go to the multidisciplinary, inviting other teachers and making a project which is useful for both subjects, and then gradually you can go to the interdisciplinary. Learning is very important. And the third important aspect for this STEAM-based pedagogy is art integrated pedagogical approach. So for that, so how can we use different forms of arts in our classroom teachings? How can we invite our students or other teachers to use this artistic approach in pedagogical practices? Because arts has been taken as a public pedagogy, arts has been taken as a means for creativity and imaginations, so that historically that art has become a very important asset in educational system. But in the name of this modern education systems, people have neglected these arts again now. So in STEAM based pedagogical approach, arts is at the center. And the next one is the obviously this technology driven learning. I'm not talking technology only as a tools, technology as a process. Perhaps you can invite your teachers or other students or other peoples to use different forms of technology to educate themselves or to run different
Vinod sir, you are muted.
I think you are muted for some reason. Yeah, please.
okay, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, please.
also, okay,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, sorry. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah. And now I'm towards the end. So the next important aspects is that so there is a debate between these two ideas, content and context. Some people say that first we need to deal with content and then later connect with the context. But STEAM based pedagogical approaches, it goes with the context. We should discuss different content, but that content should come within the context. Because we have maybe your family, maybe other community, or so there are different contexts, and let's try to find out the content within the context. So this is the one STEAM pedagogical approaches. Now, let me give you the few examples here. I'll finish in 5 or 7 minutes. Please give me time for 5 more minutes. So one, this STEAM pedagogical approaches is that we have to be aware and acknowledge for these different forms of knowing. Sometimes what we do, we focus more on this conceptual knowing. That's fine, we need that. For example, if you are math teachers, you focus on certain maybe area, perimeter, set, maybe addition concept, subtraction concept. If you are science teachers, you may focus on different different ideas of science, maybe living things, non-living things, other contents of biology, and this is same as the case of language. And then some teachers, they also go to the reflective ways of knowing, and it is more cognitive plus affective part. But more than that, we have to invite our students for developing, fostering critical ways of knowing. So what are the reasons behind it? So why are you studying this? So what is the purpose of doing this? So what happens if you do the next things? These critical ways of knowing, reflective ways of knowing, and conceptual ways of knowing, they together gives rise for visionary ways of knowing. Because what happens, we cannot guarantee that the present knowledge and skills that we are dealing can be useful for after 10 years or 15 years. So that means we need to discuss with those knowledge. But if we do not educate our students to develop some kind of vision, so to develop some kind of ideas in a newer context, perhaps the present knowledge or skills may not be useful after a few years. So for that, so different forms of knowing should be at the center in STEAM educations. So now there are some of the examples that we used during our research. So I don't want to go them into the detail, but in STEAM pedagogy, for example, in lower grades, we can see that exploring my own bag, I conducted in grade 1, 2, and 3. And we can include the different colors, the prices, the materials used in bag, advantages and disadvantages, drawing, and then bag. And then so from their own bag they normally carry in the daily basis, now we can deal different subjects. So that can be the initial entry point for this STEAM bag. And maybe if we go to the higher grades, maybe 5 or 6 or 7, the same thing, same pedagogical approaches can be used, but you can discuss other different things, whether those materials are prepared in Nepal or they are brought from other countries. So if we give emphasis on these materials for prepared in Nepal, so what will be the advantages for economy of Nepal? So I think so even the bag, it looks like that it can be useful for the lower grade, and it can be used for in the higher grade also. So based on the depth of the content. For example, in one of the projects, what we did, reading time on the was. So conventionally, we can teach that, oh, now let's teach our students so how to read time and that. But at the same time, so the time is connected with our daily schedule. So there are different gender issues, unequal distribution of the work. So in one of the projects that I conducted, grade 2 students asked this to his father, why don't you cook food for us, father? And you can see there are 2 pictures. Here the male is just sitting in the sofa and watching the TV, and the female, so she has several hands, several works doing at the same time. Normally, this is the case of this South Asian region. So that means we can raise such kind of critical issues even in the lower grades, but while dealing with the issues of time and daily schedules. So we are not only teaching that we should wake up at 6 and we should go to the bed at 8. So we can also discuss at what time do your mother wake up? Why did she do so? And then how many hours does she work at home and at office? So if you bring such types of issue, so that will be the beginning point of this addressing different issues. For example, in one of the classes, because my own background is also math, and one of the math teachers prepared one debate on square is better than rectangles. And then so that group of students came up very beautiful ideas. One group this came up with the different logics that square is better due to this and that reason. and other group came that no, rectangle is better due to this and that reason. So that is a very good connections between this language and math teachers, and the math teachers went through the mathematical ideas, and at the same time language teachers went through this confidence and then the language issue while participating in the debate. And then finally, there are several examples though, but in this presentation slide, so we did one project, Save the Species, just for 2 or 3 weeks, and finally this is the one voice told by one of the students, I started to keep water in plate in the roof, because they thought that now it's our responsibility to save the species. So that is what we call transformative STEAM educations. While doing these kind of projects or pedagogical activities, students learn different subject specific skill. At the same time, they develop a kind of sense of responsibility to the community, so sense of a kind of belongingness is a part of community member. So that is what the purpose of STEAM educations. So the next one important concepts, I don't want to go into the detail because I'm out of the time. So the assessment here, is for the framework of STEAM educational approach. So the assessment and teachings are inseparable part. Although we need to take periodically assessment for the purpose of reporting, for the purpose of scoring and grading, so that is needed. But more than that, assessment should be taken. So assessment and learning should be taken as a continuous approach. But the role of teachers is to document the major achievement, or let's say the major performance of the students, and then prepare individual portfolio. That is what we use this assessment for learning and as learning. So if we see this, one of the examples that we conducted in one of the schools, this teachers prepared this individual records of the portfolio, and whenever any person's maybe parents or other teachers asked about that particular students, and the teachers started to share in this way. Oh, that student submitted 12 assignments out of 15. 10 of them were excellent based on those criteria. Submitted 3 projects. One was multidisciplinary, 2 was disciplinary. Made 4 classroom presentations and 1 inter-classroom presentation. And then, so you can see that classroom interaction was fine, because I noticed this based on my observations, normal. But taking initiatives was more excellent than classroom interactions. So this is the entire this mirror of the individual these students. So that is what the assessment and learning, they should go side by side, and then teachers should prepare the detail on this portfolio. So this is the basic ideas of this STEAM education. Now finally, I have brought a few ideas. So how can we make STEAM-based school? I think the first stage is to critically review our own institutions. And sometimes what happens, without knowing aware with our own institution, because we all are aware with that, but sometimes we might not be aware with our cultures, the curriculum that we are using, the pedagogical practices that our school teachers are using, our assessment practices, the human resources we have, the parental expectations, the public discourse going on in educational landscape. So the first stage is we have to review the existing situations. And after that, the major important aspects would be, we have to invest on human resources, maybe teachers and staff, for the growth mindset, for cultivating interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary ways of thinking, for collaborations, and to become a passionate teachers. And sometimes what happens, so if you make that kind of teachers, so if you share new ideas, and they might think towards that new ideas. Otherwise, they have a kind of mindset that I've already done masters, bachelors with a very good grade, so I came from same systems, and then it's not necessary to change the existing pedagogical practices. And that is the major hurdles in educational institutions. And the next one is, we might go for developing some kind of club, some kind of small groups within the broader framework of interdisciplinary learning. So at the beginning, we might start from maybe math club, that can be done. But gradually that math club may interact with other science club, maybe with environment club, and they all sit together and prepare one kind of multidisciplinary kind of projects or visits. And so that can be done. And next one is my humble request to all teachers and educational leaders is that normally we go for expert driven training, very occasional kind of training. And because we have a kind of mindset that, sorry to say that, sometimes what happens, oh, I called last year that professor doctor, this one which is very famous in newspaper and then very famous in organizations, and conducted a training. At the same time, one of the teachers said that, oh, he conducted a training, but I'm sad to say that he also doesn't know that the Nepal has implemented integrated curriculum in grade 1, 2, and 3. So this is the incident that one of the teachers said. So because sometimes what happens, so having respect to the senior people in the educational field, sometimes they might not be aware with the current discourse going on in the educational setting. So the expert driven training that may not bring the sustainable change in our school system, but we need to develop a culture of continuous teacher professional development program by the teachers, for the teachers, with the teachers. So because, and then, so let's act some new ideas, let's reflect on these ideas, let's share their ideas, and let's make a kind of circular systems, a kind of spiral system, let me say, not a circular, spiral systems. And at another level we can act from another perspective, and again we can reflect and we can share. So that would be more sustainable approaches rather than this expert, so-called expert driven occasional training. And third one is, for everyday pedagogy, we must promote inquiry-based learning, investigative inquiry-based, not giving a ready-made solution, not giving a ready-made kind of capsule, these solutions to the issue. And then, and project-based learning should be used in a regular basis. So next one is, let's use for evidence-based assessment through portfolio of each students. And now finally, so if you do this academic audit regularly, so what went well, and what are the areas of improvement. So I think so living organizations should do the academic audit so that we can improve later. So now I prepare these slides based on my own research experiences, and then few of the books that I went through. So these all books and resources are open access. You can just go into this. Even you can just, if you just type the heading into the Google, and then it will lead to the to the respective website. So I want to acknowledge the authors, the writer of different chapters. So thank you so much. Thank you for providing this opportunity, although I spoke a bit more now. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vinod sir. It was a really insightful session. That's why I couldn't stop you in between. We have lots of questions, but at the moment we are not going to answer those concerns. And maybe at the end of the session we will be addressing the concern. The form will be distributed in a chat box. You can write, you can enroll your name and your email address in the form, so that we can also provide you the PowerPoint and other material in your email. So to continue our session, I would like to call Ms. Koni Karma to deliver her session. Over to you, Ms. Koni. Yes. Sansar, can you just pass the host option to Ms. Koni? I think she's not being able to unmute herself. Please put your concern and queries in the chat box so that we can later on include these concerns in a question answer session. Yeah, over to you, Ms. Koni. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank you for having me and inviting me to present how STEAM-based school looks like in Greece. So let me share my screen. Oh yeah. Before we, oh, sorry. You can see my screen, right? I think so.
Yes.
So before I start, I would like to say some things. Here in Greece, I have an English school, an English language school. So basically, an English language school takes place after school, after the public school. So basically, children go to school in the morning, and then they have English lessons in the afternoon and in the evening. the truth is that we haven't seen STEAM-based schools yet in Greece, and I mean in the public sector. And we have started to develop STEAM-based curriculum and syllabi in private schools and basically in English language schools. So when I started teaching English a few years ago, I didn't like the way people used to teach English, and that way was something about grammar based and with a lot of rules and a lot of information, and I didn't like the way they used to teach English. So I started actually developing a STEAM syllabus, a STEAM curriculum, in which I wanted to promote and include student voice and choice in the classroom. So our focus will be about the foreign language learning and teaching and the educational STEAM that we have seen here in Greece. And from my experience and from the material that I develop, we will see how we use STEAM in our syllabus. So we have created our syllabus based on three basic methods and approaches. And the first one is experiential learning. So experiential learning is the approach which encourages students and teachers to implement the theory, where students need to live the language in order to learn the language. Of course, experiential learning does not occur only in the language learning, but we can use experiential learning in every discipline, in every area of expertise. So basically, throughout experiential learning, we promote a holistic environment to our students, and we need them to communicate and collaborate in order to create our lesson and to have learning outcomes, no matter the subject and the area. So then we have CLIL, which is the second approach. And CLIL basically means content and language integrated learning. And again, whatever I say and every method doesn't only stand for English language learning, but it can be used in all subjects and areas. So CLIL has become the umbrella term describing both learning another subjects, such as, for example, physics or geography, throughout the medium of a language and studying a content-based subject. Now, the basis of CLIL is that content subjects are taught and learned in a language which is not the mother tongue of the learners, and that's the key of CLIL here. And knowledge of the language becomes the means of learning content. So the thing, how CLIL works now. Learning is improved through increased motivation in the study of natural language seen in context. And when learners are interested in a topic, they are motivated to acquire language to communicate. So the truth is that CLIL was the major approach here in Greece in language learning for about the last 5 or 6 years. And now we have seen STEAM implementing in all the syllabus. So language is seen in real life situations in which students can acquire the language, and this is natural language development, which builds on other forms of learning. Fluency is more important than accuracy, and errors are a natural part of language learning. So it is very crucial here to say that we want errors in our language environment and in our learning environment in general, because we strongly believe that our students can learn throughout their errors, and we don't have to correct everything that we see from our students. Now, the third one is inquiry, and here I have put an example from Trevor Mackenzie, who is an inquiry master from Canada, and he has traveled all over the globe presenting and delivering workshops and seminars on inquiry. So inquiry-based learning is an educational approach that encourages students to pose questions and seek out possible answers throughout investigation and exploration in the classroom. Inquiry is very important and crucial in our learning environment because we need to get away from bombing our students with new information, and we need to encourage them find new ways to ask more questions they actually want to explore and not what teachers need to explore, and we can stand by them throughout the process. So a key characteristic here is that we need to think ourselves as teachers, and we need to have us in our minds that we are explorers with our learners, and we don't need to always provide them with new information and with new knowledge and bomb them out with new things without asking them what they want to know. And here we can see 4 steps that there are in the picture. So we start with structured inquiry, controlled inquiry, guided inquiry, and free inquiry. So a small tip that I could give here, because I also have a STEAM center here in Greece, and when I started implementing STEAM, there wasn't anything similar at that time. So one thing that I could say is to start small and then step by step build your foundation, your center, your school, or anything. So here we can see structured inquiry, where basically students follow the lead of the teacher as the entire class engages in one inquiry together. So at this point, the teacher can provide with one question, one topic, and throughout investigation and exploration, we can devote maybe a week or maybe a month to try to find possible answers to our question. And then we have controlled inquiry, in which teachers chooses topics and identifies the resources students will use to answer the questions. And guided inquiry, where teachers chooses topics and questions and students design product or solution. And finally, free inquiry, in which students choose their topics without reference to any prescribed outcome. So to be honest, this is what I used to follow. And I also started with structured inquiry. And now we are able to follow free inquiry in our classrooms because we focused on the routine that our students developed, and we all together as a class tried to achieve at the end of the semester. So that disciplines, and we start with a section of science, in which of course chemistry and physics are included. And now in the technology section, the truth is that we don't mean technology as the means of using gadgets and using technological tools, etc. But we, in the educational STEAM and referring to the English language learning, the focus is on the process and the tools behind making something. So, for example, if I had to choose between a computer and a hammer, I would choose a hammer because the hammer is a tool that helps us create something else, create a product. And then we have the engineering. The process and the creation are connected in engineering, and we focus on the process, the plan, the designs, and all the factors that can provide us a creation. And the arts, all of the arts, theater, cinema, photography, painting, drawing, sketching, drama, videography, and poetry. And in my opinion, arts is a major section in STEAM, especially now that we have seen visual literacy becoming more important than ever, because visual literacy basically asks us to describe and to translate what we can see in a picture, in a poster, in a drawing, in a painting, and we need to teach our students the way they can use that in order to translate visual literacy, and this is why they haven't been more important in the field. And mathematics are included in all STEAM disciplines, but we also try to see it from another point of view. So, for example, I usually connect mathematics with the arts, and we try to describe the geometrical functions in a piece of art and in a piece of painting. So, multidisciplinary teaching and learning happens when students across disciplines work independently on different aspects of a project, and interdisciplinary structured teaching and learning build upon multidisciplinary teaching as the goal to unify two or more disciplines or to create a new discipline at the interface of other disciplines. And a transdisciplinary space for STEAM education should allow for its discipline within STEAM to occur. So in this specific context, which is my area of expertise, and that's English language teaching and learning, the goal of STEAM in the classrooms is to develop capable students who can function in a highly demanding world that draws upon multiple knowledge styles. And it is very important to have in mind that we need our students to have choice and voice throughout the STEAM-based learning. And we also need to have in mind that we need to ask our students what they are interested in learning and what they want to learn in this in their journey. So STEAM educational practices draw on each of the disciplines while appealing to a broader base of students who explore and make great connections between art, music, mathematics, technology, science, and engineering. And here is an example from our classroom. STEAM focuses on the problem and not the discipline, and it also focuses on the process and not the outcome. So it is very important for us to have in mind that we need to focus on the process and not the final outcome, the final result, because we always need to have in mind that we need to promote critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, curiosity, and communication in the classroom. It involves problem solving, but we don't always focus on one problem, because when we start with one problem, we can also find out that there are more problems that need to be solved before moving on to that specific problem. And STEAM projects do not need to be aesthetically pleasant and cute, but we focus on the process of it, as I told you before. And STEAM teaching increases motivation, engagement, and effective disciplinary learning in the classroom. So here I have included an example from our classroom. The level of the students is A1 in the English context. And the STEAM question was around castle, but we started our lesson by introducing learners to new vocabulary. We also talked about the past and using past tenses, and that's about the language learning outcomes. Now, of course, students used to actually created this castle by using all the STEAM disciplines and science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And of course, the most important thing was that we encouraged creativity, communication, and collaboration. And they found out the way they need to create the castle by themselves without the guidelines from the teacher, but throughout communication, collaboration, and creativity, they managed to create their own creation. Of course, that was a short-term project, and we have also long-term projects that last from 1 month up to 3 months. That depends on the level of the students. and what STEAM is not, all day, every day, without learning outcomes. Of course, it isn't the same in every classroom and in every grade level and setting. And we shouldn't use the arts as an additional element, for example, draw a house. A way that we use to give feedback to our students and to provide assessment techniques is that we use agendas and diaries. Now, the agendas, we use the agendas throughout our lessons, and students write their predictions, their observations, and their results. And they also keep notes on every step we make and everything we do in the classroom. They also write down their supplies that they need, what they need to find in order to create their creation. And of course, we always try to use recycling material so as to create an environmental friendly approach in the classroom. And then they also have their diaries. And when they go home, they need to write down their diary and keep notes on what we did in the classroom, what was our lesson about, what their thoughts are for our next class, our next classroom, and next lesson. And students come the next day in the classroom, they show to the teachers what they have written, their notes, and we all together make a conversation and we discuss things that we need to develop and we need to connect with the other students. And this is how we move on in the learning process. So in the scientific method, we always start with our prediction, hypothesis, and wonder questions. So we also have a piece of paper. Actually, it is like something like a waterfall, and we encourage our students to stand up and write down their questions on the wall. And teachers gather their questions of the students, and we try to find similar topics and relevant topics to their questions and create some bibliography, some background bibliography in order to provide them with that bibliography. And then our students decide their supplies, their books they need to use in order to answer their questions. And we start building the syllabus based on our students' questions. And then we move on with research, gathering of supplies and instructions and steps. Of course, we always collaborate and discuss everything together with our students. And we continue with conversation, observation, and results. In the technology section, we imagine how we can work, how we can create a tool, and what we need. And of course, we move on again with research, gathering of supplies and instruction and steps, conversation, observation, and results. And in the engineering section, we imagine how we can work, how we can create a tool, and what we need. And we always ask our students to design their building plans with collaboration. So we divide students in groups and we ask them to think and design the building plan based on the problem that we have already analyzed. And the next two steps are the same from every section of STEAM, for every discipline of STEAM. And the arts, which is a huge opportunity to include them in science learning and create a transformational change in the field. We can create, for example, we can create an aesthetically pleasant robot, and that's completely fine. But if our students only see art as making things pretty, we are missing the opportunity to teach them differently. And we are also missing the opportunity to teach them visual literacy, to teach them English literature and so many other things. We can consider aesthetics as an essential part of craft making, but we need to focus more on the arts as the power of design, emotions, and problem solving. And the truth is that in my country, at least, teachers usually see arts as just a supplementary way to have fun in the classroom, while arts don't focus on that point. So here are some examples from the section of arts: visual performance, drama and music, ELA, English language arts, social studies, media arts, and creative writing too. So, for example, look at a piece of art and create a poem, or look at the collage and create a story about the collage that you're watching at. And here I have only some really short-term activities that you can just use when you need to implement arts in your lesson. So the the arts, getting the message across through posters, paintings, etc. And the key to inquiry is to include places where students can correlate to. And the last part, mathematics. Research of mathematics. We move on with research, instruction, and steps. But to be honest, in our syllabus and in our activities, we have implemented mathematics as an integral part of the process. So mathematics has been implemented in all the other disciplines of STEAM as a whole and not on its own. And here we will see how PBL connects with STEAM, project or problem-based learning. We focus on open-ended questions and tasks, and for example, not Googleable questions. Our questions cannot be answered with a yes or no answer. We include all of the 21st century skills in the process, and plus curiosity, which I think is very important for our students to be curious and to have the need to move on their learning process and to know more things. And we aim to have independence and inquiry in our classroom. We provide them with real-life knowledge and authentic materials. And we have also we usually find articles from newspapers, from old newspapers, and videos and TED Talks. And we also ask our students to find their own videos and their own articles that they need to discuss with us, and they need to show and present to our classroom. STEAM and PBL focus on the process, and we allow our students to own the problem and the solution. That means that teachers need to be willing to teach outside of the content specialization. For example, if you're a math teacher, you can also teach science, or you can have arts into your math content, etc. So some examples from authentic materials: real world, current issues; local, something related to your school, or community-based, timely, for example, coronavirus crisis, or something interesting for students. And another tip I could give here is that we usually ask our students questions at the beginning of the year, and we ask them their interests, things that they would like to learn and know more about, or what they usually do in their free time. So some simple things that will help us get to know them and get to know each other. And we also need to have inquiry-rich material and lessons, so in which there will be multiple solutions and not only one answer and solution to the problem, because every group and every student can develop their own solution and can find out their own answer. And of course, we can also have products different with each other. So every group can create something completely different based on their way of working and collaboration and critical thinking and communication with the other peers. We also need to have a space for different learning types. And with that being said, we need to have kinesthetic types of material, auditory, and etc., to include everyone in our learning process. Of course, there is no one correct answer, and products do not look the same. So that's all from my presentation. I also found that there were a lot of common things between our way of working and your way of working based on the previous presentation. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Coney. Definitely, I really like. I was enjoying your presentation. You shared about how the how we conduct STEAM-based activities in the classroom by the experience of the students and getting them involved in various types of arts-based activities. It was really fascinating. Okay, so we are almost at the end of the presentation. I would like to request our next speaker, Professor Dr. Balchandra Rohit sir, to share his insight and add values in our webinar. Over to you, Dean sir.
Okay, thank you. So how long do I have? How long, can I make presentation? So
20 minutes, sir.
I earn 30 minutes and people
20
work
minutes.
15 or 30. Okay.
20.
Okay. I don't know whether people will wait that long. So I just, yeah. Okay. So let me start my presentation. Okay. Is visible and am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, good. So okay, let me just change. I start the. Okay, thank you very much. Actually, many of the ideas have been covered by two presenters earlier. So I just want to run through the foundational dimension of STEAM education or STEAM school. I think sometimes STEAM, the idea of STEAM school can be too narrow because the STEAM education cannot just be limited within the school. So it is a broader social project. So for us, at least, okay. So for some, it is a business project, but for us, it's a broader social project. So it can be connected and it needs to have a clear and succinct foundation. So let me just begin with the idea of kind of visions of education. If we look at the literature, and particularly if we look at the literature of popular art educator Elliot Eisner, who is no more, he passed away, but he developed what he calls alternative vision to education, in which art has a very important role. Liberal arts and other forms of arts are very, very important. They have a very important role in that particular context. And Eisner actually puts emphasis on curriculum being not fixed, rather it is dynamic, dialogic text. And also dynamism is part of the educational ecosystem, and also teachers autonomy, openness, and synergy. So this was the proposal back in, of course, this is a proposal of after 1970s actually. And this is now when we say STEAM, then the foundational orientation is the open vision of education, where we actually focus more on teacher autonomy, the students' autonomy, and curriculum being more of dynamic text. Likewise, second, when we look at the goals of higher education, I've drawn from Noam Chomsky, Professor Noam Chomsky's uh, 2 years back, he gave a keynote at the STAR conference. So I draw from there. So where we are situating ourselves. So for example, the contemporary focus of learning or education should be more on knowledge production, creation, and developing individual as skills, autonomous citizens, and why we need the skills for social change. That's what is the importance of skills for uh, learners. And also the emphasis of education should be on social transformation and reconstruction rather than profits. The focus should be on prosperity, well-being, and prosperity. So this was based on the keynote address. And if we compare with worldly schools, so I don't want to repeat what is seen in the context of worldly school, the goal of higher education. If we look at the World Economic Forum in recent years, it has worked further towards its earlier capitalist agenda, shareholder capitalism, to more focus on stakeholder capitalism. So rather than focus on profit attribute, it lays foundation for prosperity attributes, meaning that it is not just the profit oriented economy, but it is more of prosperity oriented economy, in which students should be prepared to identify challenge, to locate challenge, employ thinking skills, various forms of thinking skills, and also they need to help exercise autonomy and also they develop ethical sensibilities. So these prosperity attributes are very, very important, and they are not just for select few, but they are for the masses. So this also puts emphasis on the idea of future. Are we looking for a convergent future or a future that has divergent kind of dimensions? They're not just one future. There are more than one future. So the critique of a future approach, the future approach in education, has been done since 1990s, because the rise of the creative economy, if you like, then that this demanded not just one type of future. So futures approach require us. Then the alternative to future is futures, which means that there is not just one dimensional monodimensional approach, but it is more than discipline 1.0. So it's more of needs-based, learner as creator. The emphasis is not just foundational learning, it's more of problem solving, learning for problem solving, inquiry-based learning. And in recent years, we have seen the school space or learning space like this. Okay, this is an example. So open space where students meet and sit together. It's not just the lecture hall, but they sit and they work together. And in here, we need to see the shift from the tension between job seeker, social entrepreneur. Where are we focusing? Personal values or social values, cognitive and affective, subject specific, and more transversal kind of skills, knowledge to values, or knowledge and values, and profit and prosperity. So this discourse takes us further to what UNESCO has brought recently, the reimagining or new social reimagining our future together, a new social contract for education. So some of our students have also written essay to include in this particular book, including Dr. Suresh Gautam, and other MSD students. And they actually talk about number of shifts, and I tried to synthesize these into 5 shifts. For example, do we mean that education is just forgiven? You should do this or that, or it should, okay? And global to local. So we need to, of course, we cannot, replace global by local, but it's more of balancing act, local. That's why we call it. So it's not just compartmentalized learning, silo-centric learning, but more of inter-multi transdisciplinary learning, and emphasis to be on values, and neutral to more reconstructionist approach. I briefly explain them, okay? So when we say given, then you should give the teacher, the big people, the elders, the mature people to give, so-called mature people, give so-called knowledge and skills to the younger generation. This is the idea of given. Education, the idea of mass education has actually been established or been conceived to give something to others. And that is problematic. And that has been problematic over the period of years, period of centuries, I would say, over centuries. Now we should focus on creation because of the change is in the nature of knowledge, in the nature of perception of information, a nature of change in change brought by technology, ICT, so on and so forth. So we need to focus on creation. So creation of values probably, and also the opportunity to solve problems. The problems can be at the global scale, and they might have impact at the local level, and local problems can impact at the global level. So this is two-way. For example, if there is a problem of terrorism, it can impact not just in one place, but can impact in many other places. If there is war, then it can impact in many places. For example, the wars going on in two places right now, the visible wars, other forms of wars, and they are impacting the lives of many people around the world. And then that needs to see, if we are to prepare people to imagine our future, then we need not to be, or one discipline may not be necessary, or one discipline is not, may be necessary, necessary, but may not be sufficient. So we need to shift beyond one discipline. And then we need also to understand our values. What is the education for? Is it for profit driven values, capitalistic values, or more social values? What are the values? And we are not teaching values, but we are helping students to understand their values, to clarify their values, their religious values, their family values, and they try to see the limitations of their values as well. And also more of reconstructionist approach, rather than becoming neutral, rather than just gaining knowledge or skills, but also having to see and know the possibility of application. So, and these are, for example, some of the examples is the future given. This is the foundational question. Can we give the future to students? Probably there is no the future. If we talk about multiple truths, if we talk about multiple value system, then there is not just one future. There are multiple futures. I think this is where we need to actually work. So then if there is given, then I give a better future, students will receive, the future will be better. And this is I think this is the wrong conception of educational thinking. So when we talk about creation, then we need to focus on place, people, and time. Likewise, when we say the global local tension is also there. When we talk about global, then we focus more on dominant knowledge, dominant discourse, dominant language, and culture. But are they sufficient? Are they, do they help to solve our problems? Then probably we need to turn into local issues. Then local issues, national priorities, local solutions. And education it has always been in the gulf of local and global. Are they sufficient? Again, probably they are not sufficient. So we need global issues, and then we also are, encounter local context. How do we see the interface between these two contrasting elements? Okay, then if we see, we also have this idea called something wrong here. Okay, sometimes we would think that, in my university education, global issues and local effect or local impact. So think globally, act locally, kind of. Probably the other way around should also be thought, thinking locally, acting globally, and both way. So this would also probably help us understand the educational processes and system when we talk about when we talk about STEAM education or STEAM school. So these foundation, apart from these foundation, we can also think of integrated activities, classroom-based activities. For example, this is a 54 window temple situated in Bhaktapur, located in Bhaktapur, we might use this as a cultural artifact, but also as an educational tool. And we can also help engage students in problem-based learning or project-based learning. For example, how many trees would have been needed, and the dimension of windows, and pattern counting, music that can play in that particular old palace, and designing a similar darbar, and what kind of materials were used. So these kind of approach would help us to connect different disciplines. Someone was asking the question there for earlier presenters, how can we connect all the disciplines? I'm not saying we should connect all the disciplines, all quote unquote. We start connecting at least two, establishing the connection between the two, or talking to teachers, math teachers and English teachers, they might sit together, or another teacher may join in later. So in this way, we can start working. So likewise, we have a poem in Nepali language, which temple do we visit, traveler, kun mandir ma jancho yatri. So here as well, you can also, use technology. You can use Microsoft Word or any other programs to make the pictorial representation of the poem. Reading, writing, listening, speaking, and also performing. So meaning that singing through melody and meter and rhythm, and also arts and craft. You might also use, drawing, painting, ask students or engage students in drawing, painting, and other fellow travelers. So maths count the words for that form and stanza and rhythm and distance to temple. There might be a nearby temple, and you can ask to do mathematics as well. So these kind of activities can be done. And in engineering, you might draw the temple, you might design a temple of the vision of that particular poet. So in our work, for example, community problem solving, planting trees, if the school, your school has a, land, then they can do, this activity. And in that, they identify the nature of plant, and then the land area needing to grow that particular plant would also entail the requires design, a particular kind of design, and also requires some mathematics as well. And also you might also use art to create prototype and share among the before you start planting. So this kind of problems can be, this kind of activity, sorry, can be designed through this way. So for example, one activity in science expedition to Mars, so students can turn their classroom into the rocket launch pad in a way. For example, they study in science, they study nature of Mars, the landscapes, and also they might also look at the computers and gadgets needed to use on the surface of Mars. For example, on Earth, we need a particular kind of specification. So what they might imagine, the imagination may not be 100% correct, but they start imagining. Engineering the design of the spaceship, what kind of prototype they would prepare, compose the music, and in arts, they can compose the music that can be played on the surface of Mars. I mean, again, it takes to another level of imagination. And mathematics, distance from Earth, from Sun to Mars, various types of data related to landscape and possible atmospheric structure system of Mars and culture. In Nepali, particularly in Hindu culture, Mars is considered to be aggressive planet, and how science takes this construct. So because it is also called red planet, an aggressive planet. So how can we compare that with this? So these are some examples. For example, social studies, Nepal during the Litsavi period. So we can connect with arts and crafts. Social studies itself is interdisciplinary, interdisciplinary subject, if you like. Then you can connect with so many ideas here. So this is not just to actually, these are some examples, and I shared the foundation of open vision of education, and also the 5 shifts suggested by UNESCO, and also some examples. And now the foundational orientation or foundational dimension of STEAM education is transformative pedagogy, in which students uh, are able to question, are able to participate, and challenge, or sometime create. So this is the main purpose of transformative and transfer and STEAM school. So for that, colleagues already shared several ideas. For example, when we are, what is the purpose of transformative education? How do we prepare teachers? How do we prepare the environment? So if we prepare environment and teachers, or routines and classroom based on disciplinary egocentrism, then probably you cannot move further, like sharing across disciplines and helping them to engage engage productively and work in transdisciplinary projects. And so this is also sometime difficult to move. For example, I'm a math teacher, I'm an English teacher, I'm Nepali teacher, I'm a social studies teacher, and I need to teach my one discipline. I'm not interested in going beyond my discipline. I'm not interested in having conversation because I have my own, agenda. So if we go this way, this is difficult for us to actually implement a STEAM curriculum in school or a STEAM pedagogy in our school. So we need to shift. So it starts from people. It probably doesn't start with a written curriculum, or if it starts with written curriculum, then it should start with people. Two people should sit together, two persons at least should sit together and start planning for the what we call interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary pedagogy. So STEAM starts from there. So in order to understand the foundation, the other dimension is that apart from the pedagogical dimension, the other dimension is curricular dimension. Okay, so when we see the curriculum perspectives, then we have two major orientation. Okay? One orientation is more of classical curriculum. The curriculum focuses more on informing pedagogy. It puts emphasis on the pedagogy that prepares students for the given. Okay, like math, science, social studies, these are subjects and they are given. Okay, they have subject matter. So, and the other version, other side of curricular perspective includes progressive, more of reforming and transforming curriculum. Here, for example, if we say curriculum as content, then here teacher would focus on completing the doing the exams, taking the exams, so on and so forth. So this curriculum is largely teacher-centered and also does not take into account the students' experiences, and the students are not able to develop as imaginative and creative thinkers because they are busy. They are busy completing the course, knowing the definition, and most of the time they are, they have to work in more of instrumental understanding, which entails more of the rote memorization as opposed to relational understanding where they can see connections. Okay, so then the other is mastery. Curriculum as mastery. This has been developed in 1980s, and this is very much used in business, industry, and military, and most of the training type of curriculum, where we assess the need and pre-test and then see the results. After the so learners are pre-tested to the existing knowledge and post-tested to assess the mastery. And learner can perform skills efficiently, but not easily transfer to broader context. In Nepal, I don't know what is happening in Greece. In Nepal right now, many people talk about skills-based education. They tend to romanticize skills as though a skill, does magic like, anything. But this is what curriculum is about. It's a more mastery-driven curriculum, and skill is also limited. This kind of skills are also limited, because they are not taken to a broader context. They are for limited purpose, limited time, and they are prepared for particular job. And this is this is driven by behavioral psychology, stimulus response. If you have better stimulus, then you have better response. Okay, stimulus response bonding. Next would be curriculum as reproduction and driven by the national interest of a particular state, nation state. The aim is to produce dominant culture. Okay, so lots of hidden curriculum, and students learn to conform to dominant social norms, and students are not well prepared to in a rapidly changing society because they become more docile and they become more conforming learner rather than questioning learner. So the question is, whose interest is being served by this type of curricula? So this is the emphasis would be on a spirit of conformity rather than a spirit of independence. Okay, so the major outcome of this type of curriculum is content mastery reproduction, and this can be characterized by the input model. Okay, so for example, you can see this cartoon. I see you did well in exam, in school, but what real world skills do you have? If this is the question, then the student would say that test, I can take test, meaning that the schools are preparing just for test. Okay, so this is the so if we look at the progressive curriculum images, then we can offer three kind of curriculum images. One would be curriculum as lived experience, in which the emphasis is on more of experiential learning, where students are engaged in doing something and also reflecting and having dialogue about their experience. Okay, it's not just doing plus reflection, doing plus meaning making. So this is called experiential learning. So emphasis would be coming to know. Learning is coming to know. Learning is not the finished product, but it is a process. It is a slow process. Okay, so learning connects with out of school life. So this is the emphasis of curriculum as lived experience. And as I gave earlier example similar to this one, if we engage students in building classroom, kitchen garden, then they prepare kitchen garden, they bring that experience, and next day they discuss inside the classroom, or they do some other activities and make meaning, compare, contrast among their colleagues. So this is more of thinking driven curriculum, questioning curriculum, experiential curriculum, I would say. So next would be curriculum as learning outcomes. Emphasis, Connie also mentioned earlier that learning outcomes feature every day in their teaching and learning. I think that is very, very important. And learning outcomes actually make the learning process transparent. Students know where they are going to be assessed, what would be the criteria of assessment. So there are intended learning outcomes and there are known criteria, and students learn to reflect their quality of their learning, and self-assessment, metacognitive are part of their learning process or the curriculum. And actually the limitation is that not all valuable learning is intentional, because when we say outcomes, then they should be intentional. Of course, inquiry generates several other unintended outcomes. So yes, so if students are engaged in doing something, producing something, the outcome would be to solve everyday problems. They should be very generic one, and they identify that there is no library, community library in their world, and then they collect data, they use mathematical skills, science, develop observational skills, engineering, design, they develop based on these data, they design the building and with different rooms, and ask, they write a proposal. Okay, so the final one, curriculum as reconstruction. So the emphasis here is to improve the society, look for more for social projects, connect with the society and community, immediate community. This is a very challenging curriculum, and many would consider this to be very much ideological curriculum. But over the period of time, because the world faces different problems at different stages of different times and periods. So if we look at those issues like climate change, biodiversity, cultural diversity, so on and so forth, and we have many other problems we have been facing, probably these are the immediate action points for our learning. If we are to connect students, if we are to develop students as problem solvers, so then we need higher level abilities, higher consciousness, such as critical reflective thinking, empathic communication, collaborative decision making, envisioning, commitment to making difference. So, of course, this curriculum might also be challenging in terms of the idea of school impacting the entire community and society, because school is a very small entity. So how it can change? So these are the questions. But again, if we see these two, kind of curriculum, so one would be two classes of curriculum. One class would be the progressive, so-called progressive curriculum, measures emphasis on lived experiences, experiential learning, learning outcomes, learning becoming more and more transparent, more metacognitive, more reflective, and reconstruction, more transformative focus, more social change-driven curriculum. So, but again, this doesn't mean that we should, we should actually take these elements like content mastery and reproduction away from the transformative STEAM curriculum for 21st century Nepal, if you like. Then the question would be, the teacher would ask this question: how can I enable my students to develop to their fullest human potential as critical and competent citizen in a rapidly developing society seeking sustainable development? Because this is the major question facing our education today. So how can we connect these two? Okay. So this is what I have to say today. Thank you very much. I think I just mentioned a few things like dynamic assessment. In order to address this kind of curriculum, we need dynamic assessment. And if we look at STEAM education, we are not just focusing STEAM school. We are trying to make school more transformative. So transformative STEAM school, transformative STEAM education. So the broader philosophy is that apart from the connections across STEAM, there are two elements very important. One is critical cultural consciousness. What we do, we need to reflect what Binodji already mentioned, that whether we reflect on our values. Okay. For example, in Nepal, I was taught Paulo Freire and John Dewey when I was doing bachelor and masters, but they were not connected with our values. We did not reflect critically on our own values, which are not helping or which are preventing those ideas being implemented. And all the other one is sustainability education. So connecting planet with the critical cultural consciousness, then we become, we will be potentially will be able to develop STEAM school. Okay, so then the leadership side, we need to look into structure and system. We need to look at data and evidences. We need to look at the design, how you design the psychological design and also physical design, both kind of design. What kind of culture do we promote? What kind of imagination and vision, what type of mission and vision we have, because they offer us the imaginative space of our organization. And also finally, do we reflect critically on our own values, on our own activities? Then we'll be able to create a transformative STEAM school, or we can have a school with a vision of transformative STEAM education. So thank you very much. So these are my slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adin. So it was really research backed, like it's a very in-depth presentation. Now we are at the end of the session. We would like to take some concern and queries from our friends. I think like we do not have concern for Balsar and Miss Koni, but for Binod sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So there was one like two question like what could be the role of leadership to promote STEAM-based education in a school? So that question, that concern was from the Lakshmi ma'am and Chit sir. So what would be the role of leaders to promote STEAM?
Okay. Thank you, Sarita ma'am. So based on my experiences, so I just went through all questions. So I try to make it very short. So one thing is that Chit sir and Lakshmi ma'am. So I think one of the rule, the head teacher's role is to develop teachers and then gradually need to reach to the parents to start with working with a kind of in a collaborative nature, just inviting two or more two teachers to sit together to discuss curriculum to each other and try to come up with a kind of interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary kind of activities, classroom activities, and gradually demonstrating into the projects. I think that the head teachers should create such kind of environment and then manage resources. So that could be the first step, because sometimes what happens, the teachers, they are working in their own style, in their own way, and then one teachers might be very resourceful in one particular inquiry based approach, other teachers might be very resourceful in art integrated approach, but we do not have, normally we do not have a culture of sharing those pedagogical practices to each other, because it was normally said that we are very good at sharing our personal other kind of things, but the professionally how we are dealing with the students. So I think the teachers should provide that opportunity and support for that. So the next one is, there are some other few questions. So regarding this school based curriculum, I saw, yes, obviously this Mero Serofero or Hamro Serofero. So that is one of the example of interdisciplinary nature of resources, let me say. So we can also to consider that one of the materials prepared from the principle of STEAM approaches. You can see several arts-based approaches there, and then several issues. This societal issues has been incorporated in teaching those Mereshero. So I agree on that. So I think one of the questions that I can see is regarding integrated curriculum and STEAM based curriculum. So there are different viewpoint, but STEAM approach is also the integrated approach. But here it's not only the forceful integrations of subject matter only for conceptual clarity, but STEAM is more than that, as I showed before, and as Professor Limited also has shared. So we should go beyond conceptual ways of understanding, critical knowing. Sometimes the conventional ways of integrated subjects might be limited only in pedagogical approach and then discussing on the conceptual thing. So that I think the STEAM approach is also the integrated curriculum, but they have some commonalities, but they also stand in different places. So that is what I want to say. So one of the major focus that RC Pokhrel has raised, so this what is the nexus between transformative education and STEAM education? So I believe they are interconnected, because STEAM, several peoples around the world, they have argued from different perspective. Our research group led by Professor Lungtel, so we call it transformative STEAM education. So the purpose of this entire STEAM approach is for transformations. So transformations can be argued from different point of view, but we are arguing transformations through STEAM educational approaches. So this is related from that side. So thank you so much. Thank you for raising this much questions. Some questions were very difficult as well. Thank you. Over to you, Saitya ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope like Chit sir and Lakshmi ma'am, just got the answers. All right. Okay. So now we are at the end of the session. Like there's no more concern, but we have kept the form link in here. We will be providing lots of STEAM-based resources, PowerPoint. If you can fill up the form and leave your email ID here. Now, I would like to ask our CPEC team members to present e-certificate to be handed over to our speakers. Okay, first of all, we would like to hand over the e-certificate to Ms. Koni Karma on behalf of Kathmandu University School of Education.
Thank you so much.
So we are so honored to have your presence here, and it was really nice to hear your insight. At the end, do you want to share something, Koni?
Sorry, what? I didn't hear you.
Did you like get any insights from the presentation, or any you would like to say something at the end?
I think that we have so many things in common, and I find a common path between this approach. So I think we should always try, to learn more and continue our development and just teach through STEAM.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Koni. Thank you so much, team. Also, now at the end, we do have certificate for Vinod sir as well. But at the end, I would like to again request our Dean sir to wrap up this webinar. Over to you, Dean sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I have nothing to say. Everyone who participated there, they thank you very much for coming along and having posted their questions and comments. We have School of Education, Kathmandu University School of Education has been organizing several webinars and activities, other activities in the community apart from our regular programs. And our regular programs, especially the master's programs, will be announced in 2-3 months for the August session. So um, keep watching us. Especially we have Facebook page, and we also have website. We also have YouTube channel as well. So thank you very much for your interest in our activities and program. And I also thank Koni Karma from Greece. Thank you very much. Of course, yes, we have many commonalities in our activities, in our programs. So we should collaborate, and the CPEC team, CPEC team will also contact you for further collaboration, future collaborations. Once again, thank you, and we close the session today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye, everyone. Thank you. Good night. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.